Hi, Yasmin. My name is Omar Abdel Fattah. I'm the director of Ask a Muslim Canada. And as a practicing Muslim and somebody who speaks openly about Islam, I've given a TED Talk at UBC last year.
So did you have a question, Omar?
I do have a question, yes. So the question is very simple. I would ask you, would you be willing to debate me in front of everybody here? Not today, but we can organize a debate. Would you be willing to debate me about some of the things that you stated about Islam?
Yeah.
It's a very simple question.
So it's a very simple question, and the very simple response is no. I wouldn't debate you. I wouldn't debate a flat earther. I wouldn't debate an anti-vaxxer. I wouldn't debate somebody who believes in fairies and leprechauns.
Why not?
I'm not interested.
Speaking about being open-minded, however.
So this isn't a conversation. This is a question, answer, and now the next person in line.
Okay. My offer's still on the board.
Thank you.
So there might be some other people who might be willing to debate you, so I guess just keep trying. Inshallah.
Yasmin, thank you so much for being with us. On behalf of the Francophone ex-Muslims community, we are proud and happy to welcome you for this interview. You are an inspiration for a lot of us. First of all, for those who are not familiar with you, what would you say about your story? In other words, how did you become the warrior woman you are today?
Oh, that's very sweet. My mother is originally from Egypt, and my father is from Gaza and in Palestine. And when he was 18, that's when Palestine was under the Egyptian Authority. And so he went to university in Egypt, and that's where he met my mom. And together they got married and they moved to San Francisco, California, in America. And they had my sister there. And then they moved to Canada, and that's where they had my brother and me. And by the time I was born, the marriage fell apart. So my mom was in a new city, in a new country with 3 children. Her husband moved to the other side of the country, and she went looking to the mosque for support, community, and she found a very religious man, and he was already married, he already had 3 children, but he married my mom. She became his second wife. And so from the moment he entered our lives, it was like everything was haram, right? Everything's forbidden. No more non-Muslim friends, no more riding a bike, no more swimming, no more going to birthday parties. Everything was forbidden. We started going to, of course, he put my mother in hijab and me and my sister in hijab. We started going to Islamic schools. And this was my life. It was all about praying 5 times a day, memorizing Quran. This world doesn't matter. Only the akhirah matters. Only the judgment day, the hereafter, that's what matters. This world is nothing. Your life is nothing. And I was always very resistant, uncomfortable, unhappy, sad, angry that this man came into our lives and ruined everything. I wanted to go back to the days before he entered our lives. And so I always kind of had this resistance from him. And I will skip a lot of things, but basically, eventually what happened was that my family felt that in order to control me, they needed to find a man who was strong enough to control me. And so they chose a terrorist, a man named Assam Marzouk, who is a member of Al-Qaeda. He was in Afghanistan with bin Laden for 10 years before he ended up coming to Canada as a refugee with a fake passport. My mom said, this is a man who's strong enough to control you. This is somebody where I will finally submit. And it worked. Yeah, I was put in niqab, head to toe black. I was not allowed to leave the house. He would beat me. He would rape me. It was everything you would imagine life with a terrorist, what it's like. And then I had my daughter. And then when I had my daughter, I knew I had to get out of this house. I had to get out of this world because I didn't want her to live the same hell that I had lived. I wanted her to know freedom. I wanted her to know that she was valuable, that she wasn't a subordinate to a man the way I had always been raised. And so again, I have to skip. It was not easy, but a long series of difficult events. And I was able to get away from him with my daughter. So my daughter and I were able to escape from him, escape from my mother, and then start my life all over again. And when I started my life all over again, I was in university and I took a course called History of Religions. And the course focused on the three Abrahamic religions, so Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And my mother was a Islamic scholar, right? She's the head of the Islamic Studies department at the Islamic school. She's a master's degree in Islamic Studies from Al Azhar University. And of course, as her children, it was very important that we be very versed in Islam because we can't embarrass her, you know? And so when I took that course, it was simply because I thought, well, a third of this course, I know it inside out. I'll have no trouble with the curriculum for Islam. And so maybe it will be like an easy A for me. I didn't realize that that course was going to change my life completely. So while I was taking that course, simultaneously 9/11 happened. And when it happened, even though it happened in America, in Canada, we felt it as if it was happening in our country. America and Canada have a very close relationship. And so I was both intellectually and emotionally, I was being bombarded. And so by the end of that year, I said, you know, I want nothing more to do with this religion. And of course, I stayed very, very quiet for many, many years to protect my daughter because her father is Al Qaeda. He's in prison now, but I don't know where his friends are. And also to protect myself because somebody, as you both know, somebody who renounces the religion, the punishment is execution. And this can be carried out by any believing Muslim. And so I stayed very quiet for many years. And then what started to happen in Canada and in America, which you see some of this happening in France too, was there was such a cone of silence around speaking about any criticizing anything to do with Islam because it could be considered racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and so nobody would talk. And so nobody would say anything about the human rights abuses and the the gay rights abuses, the women's rights abuses, all of these things were happening, but nobody can say anything if it's happening in Muslim communities. Then it's shut your mouth. It's acceptable. And so anybody who tries to speak up, they are told you're racist, you're this, you're that. And so I said, okay, here I am with my brown skin and my Arab background and my name, Muhammad. I'm going to come and I'm going to say the exact same things that these American people are saying. And it will force people to engage with the argument instead of just shutting down the conversation by saying, "Oh, you're white, you're Western, you don't have the right to speak," you know? And so that's why I started to speak, and then I wrote my book.
How the West
Correct.
empowers radical Muslims. Yeah, thank you.
That's correct.
I was about to
And
ask you.
it's in French as well. It's available in French. My friend Noé Jacomet, who is in Paris, he translated it for me. So it's available in French as well. And actually 15 languages, that's correct. You did your homework. Good research. Yeah, 15 languages. So it's been successful. I'm really grateful that this book that no publisher wanted to touch it. Nobody, no mainstream publisher, they all said, we can't. We love this. We think it's very interesting. We're very proud of you. You're a great person, but we're not going to publish this book. So most of them, I believe it's because of what we were just talking about. It's because of this fear of Islamophobia, and people are going to say racist, xenophobic, blah blah blah. So they didn't want to publish it. So I had to self-publish, which is difficult to do because I have to be everything for myself. I have to be my own agent, my own marketing, my own accounting, my own everything, um, a- and I was feeling very uh, disillusioned and despondent and just sad and angry that my story didn't matter, that people didn't want to hear it because they were too worried that the perpetrators of this violence against me might get offended, instead of thinking about my situation. Like, I'm telling you my story, and I'm telling you the stories of millions and millions of women across the globe, but you don't want to hear that. And not just women and men. So many people are persecuted by radical Islam every day. We can't talk about it, and we see this after October 7th, right? Even women being raped by Hamas don't want to talk about it, don't want to acknowledge it, don't want to admit it. So it's like, it doesn't matter how badly a person is being victimized, they will constantly protect this religion. And so it was very frustrating because if you're in Iran or Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, you expect that. But you don't expect it in Canada, America, Germany, France, Sweden. I don't expect that here, you know. On every building in France, it's laïcité, fraternité, um, liberté, right? And that's why I love this country. That is why everybody loves this country, is the secularism here is unapologetic. Canada at the end of the day, America at the end of the day, the church is at the top. They always, in God we trust, and the Church of England is at the top of the food chain in Canada. It's not the same in France. All religions are, it's a truly secular country, not just a pretend secular like my country, right? It's like very, very heartbreaking to see that in the places where you would expect to find refuge, to find solace, to find comfort and safety, you still find yourself having to be careful who you talk to and how you talk. And I haven't been able to get my book published in French either.
Yeah, I was about to ask. So you self-published it?
In most of the languages that I've mentioned, so Spanish, Catalan, Swedish, Finnish, so many languages, Italian, it's publishers from all of those countries. But my French is the only one, other than my English, only my French and my English did I have to self-publish because no publisher would do it.
It seems I saw on the social media that Sir Richard Dawkins helped you with something with your book to
Yes.
make it available.
Yes, he translated it in 4 languages. He made it available for free on his website in Arabic, Urdu, Indonesian, and Persian, Farsi.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Very strategic.
yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, because in those countries, they can't carry my book around and read it. It's dangerous for them. So now they can find the PDF online.
So it leads me to my second question about your huge amount of activities. I could see you came across Bill Maher, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, and other famous people, and I'm very proud I could see you there, and you could make the voice of people like us heard. But I'd like to know more about the other activities through your foundations. That is Free Hearts, Free Minds. So can you tell us about that, please?
Yes, thank you so much for asking me about this organization. Is my pride and joy. So, you know, there is a lot of darkness in my past, and I developed this organization as a way to sort of take all of those experiences and all that darkness and channel it into something good. Turn it into something positive. So I was very, very isolated and alone and scared when I was renouncing Islam, when I was going through that journey by myself. Because, of course, as you know, you lose your family, you lose your friends, you lose your community, you're ostracized, you're hated, you're demonized. So you're very isolated. It's very scary, very dark time, very depressing time. And honestly, if I didn't have my daughter, I don't think I would have survived those days. It was really, really difficult. And now with social media, we can find each other and we can speak to each other. Platforms like this allows us to hear each other and to feel seen and heard and understood, and we feel like I'm not the crazy one or I'm not the bad one, but you start to feel like, oh, people understand me. It's like a safe space. And so with my organization, we have that community, right? It's a place, first of all, we take people through, because quite often by the time people reach out to us, they are suicidal, they are in dangerous situations. There's a lot of difficulties that we have to overcome. So, often there's group therapy, there's personalized individual therapy, there's different steps that we have to go through to allow people to feel empowered with their decision to leave Islam behind and to become their authentic selves. And then we have a very, very supportive community of people all around the world. And then those people quite often will, because they know each other intimately because we've gone through the program together. They will meet up with each other in Egypt and Saudi Arabia, all over the world, not just like in Canada and Sweden and in the safe countries, but even in the unsafe countries, because we have a very strong bond, very tight community, and so it's healing for me on a personal level, um, and it's just such an important cause because there's no other nonprofit organization on the planet that prioritizes former Muslims. We are the only ones that do this work. And you can imagine the amount of people that contact us. Like we have people every day, our inboxes are full. And we can only serve about 10% of the people who contact us. 90% of the people, we have to keep them on a wait list. And that's difficult because these are people that are reaching out to us as a last resort. And so we want to be able to help people as immediately as we can. But of course, we're limited because we are a nonprofit, because we are a charity, because nobody pays for their sessions or for their program, and so we just have to rely on donors. And so we're doing the best we can. I'm very proud of the work that we're doing. If you look at we do tests with the people before they enter to see their scores as far as depression, anxiety, and things like that. And then we'll do another test afterwards to see how much they have improved. And we've seen rates up to like 96% improvement in depression scores. So, we feel very grateful. Yeah, it's very rewarding. I'm really, really grateful that I'm able to do this work. And yeah, it's phenomenal.
So there is a lot of suffering here, I can hear, and healing. And also the good news is that the figures seem to be important here. That more and more people are reaching out.
Yes,
So
yes, that
that's
is
a
very,
very good signal.
you're right. That is good news.
I'd like to reference two specific instances to illustrate two extremes of perception. The first one is in 2015, if you remember, Ahmed Harpan appeared on a TV show, an Egyptian TV show, and he was treated as a complete insane and eccentric guy by the journalists, especially the woman, for presenting himself as an apostate. And in other instance, very funny, you yourself responded to a Muslim inviting you to debate by saying that you were as interested in debating with a Muslim as with someone who believes in fairies, leprechauns, and dragons, if I remember well. So basically, these examples show two extremes. So atheists being seen as completely crazy, and the religious being seen as somehow delusional. And the question is, over the past 10 years, well, 9 years, do you think there is any difference? Do you think that the perception of Muslims themselves, I'm not talking about ex-Muslims, but Muslims themselves, has changed? And are they more willing to listen to those who have left, to dialogue with those who have left, who never believed in the first place, who are supposed to be Muslims?
Mhm. So this is a good opportunity for me to talk to you about another organization that I co-founded, and it's called the Clarity Coalition. And I co-founded it with a Muslim man named Dr. Zudi Jasser, who's running for Congress in Phoenix, Arizona. And this is a coalition of Muslims, ex-Muslims, Hindus, Christians, atheists, whatever. It doesn't matter what your background is. We're all people that are working together to counter the Islamist narrative, which you find is so strong and so well funded in media and in government and in education, you know. Um, so I work with Muslim people every day. I have love and respect for so many Muslim people, but I do not have any time and I will not give any energy to the indoctrinated Muslims who just want to have a debate. It's a waste of my time. And I just feel like I was indoctrinated. I know what it's like to be indoctrinated and to repeat the same tropes, the same phrases, the same words. And it's like cyborgs, it's like a computer software program where they're all saying the same thing. I know what you're going to say because I said the same thing. I know that. And so this is not somebody that I'm interested in having a debate with, right? So that's me on a personal level with those kinds of Muslims who I know their minds are closed and they're just repeating whatever tropes has been fed into their software. But when it comes to open minded, liberal thinking Muslims, that's a completely different story. Those are people that I fully support. I am not a Muslim reformer. It's not my fight, but I 100% support Muslims who want to reform their religion and who want to bring Muslims to 2024. When it comes to women's rights or LGBT rights or freedom of speech or freedom of expression or all of the things that we hold dear in liberal societies. If you are a Muslim who wants to work towards we share the same values. So of course I'm happy to work with you, but if you're the kind of Muslim who will excuse what Hamas did or find, or worse, to support what Hamas did or something like that, no, I'm not going to, there's no need for a conversation because you're somebody who's too far gone. And yeah, I just won't give someone like that my time or my energy.
And what this foundation Clarity,
Yes.
how are they working? What are you doing?
Yeah, so we are a coalition of people. So each one of us has our own individual foundation or our own individual organization that is doing similar work. And so in this coalition, we're able to support each other in the different work that we're all doing. So we have journalists, we have politicians, we have activists, we have all sorts of different people. And so what we do is, let me give you an example. So one of our members is a gay man from Canada who used to be the head of the Human Rights Tribunal in Canada. And the National Council of Canadian Muslims decided that he was Islamophobic because 12 years ago, he wrote an academic book review. And in the book review, he said that Islam is a colonizing religion. Of course, we know it's a colonizing religion. These 57 countries they were colonized. But the fact that he said that made him Islamophobic, and so they got him fired. And so, if we had been available as a coalition, then we could have written letters and petitioned for him and supported him and maybe prevented that from happening. But what's happening right now is you have big Muslim organizations like the National Council of Canadian Muslims, you have CARE, you have all sorts of groups. I'm sure in France you have similar groups. And we don't have a counterbalance. We don't have a group on the other side. And so that's who we are now. We are the group on the other side. So when they come like a mob to attack you, we come like a mob to protect you.
And this coalition includes Muslims who are happy
Yes.
to share the same values
Oh,
with us.
Muse, this is the thing. One of our top universities in Canada received federal funding to do research on Canadian Islamophobes. I was listed, of course, as one of the top Canadian Islamophobes. Another top Canadian Islamophobe is a woman named Raheel Raza. She is a Muslim woman who started an organization called the Council of Muslims Against Anti-Semitism. So because she is a Muslim woman who is against anti-Semitism, she is hated by her community. So this is what's interesting. I'm Muslim, I'm ex-Muslim, she's Muslim, but it doesn't matter because from their perspective, they hate both of us. And both of us are considered Islamophobes. Both of us will be attacked. So of course, Raheel is part of our coalition, right? And in fact, our next conference is going to be in Toronto, where she's going to be hosting us. So it's like we have to, together we are stronger. We have to unite. We are all individually doing this work, standing alone. It's difficult. It's scary. They're constantly attacking us. So when we work together, then we can feel more protected. We can feel more brave to take bigger risks because we know we have people behind us who will support us.
We still have some minutes. Jean, you want to ask your last question?
It's a question about one ayah in particular. You said you learned the Quran, and one ayah in particular says in Quran, "الرجال قوامون على النساء." The thing is, I come from Algeria, and in Algeria, we know today that women in general earn more than men because they are more educated. They earn about 15%. So, and the question was very simple, and it follows what you said. What do you believe is the duty? I'm not talking about the role, but the duty of women in at least reforming, maybe secularizing as well, their societies, their Muslim societies.
Well, I really believe that women should be speaking up for the feminist issues, So in Islam, we have a lot of problems. Like the scripture has a lot of misogyny that ends up being in a lot of laws, So like in Egypt, for example, the women there tried to get marital rape criminalized. They tried to get beating your wife criminalized, but they were unsuccessful because at the end of the day, this was made halal, whether in Quran or Ahadith. And so who are you as a regular human to come and try to make something haram that already Allah has made it halal, So they're up against there's a huge battle. And you see the same thing with women in Iran trying to, when the Islamic Republic of Iran came into power, one of the first things that they did was reduce the minimum age of marriage for girls. So these are the kinds of things they do. And even though in Algeria, I think it's wonderful today that that women are educated. Obviously, Algeria is doing a lot better today than it was during the dark decade. It's definitely progressing.
Yes,
Always
women.
work to do.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
always work to do. You're absolutely correct. So yes, we're not seeing the violence that we saw during, that decade, but there's always work to do. And I'm working with women from Tunisia all the time who get very frustrated because everybody likes to hold up Tunisia as like an example of democracy. And they're like, no, we have so many problems and we're fighting so hard. But it's like when you're up against Afghanistan that doesn't even let girls go to school, it's like the the problems are so many and so varied that it's like it has to be so drastic for the world to pay attention. But I know that there are women in all of these countries that are fighting hard for these women's issues, and I'm very proud of them, and I 100% support them. You know, it's going to be a very difficult battle to try and defang the religion, you know, to try and have secularism, to try and separate mosque and state. But that's the first step, I believe, the first step, and we will never see any kind of progress until we separate mosque and state, separate it from law enforcement, from government, from education. Then we will start to see some progress in our countries.
Thank you, Yasmin. Before we let you go, I just wanted to share with you a memory that just came to my mind now when you mentioned the dark decade. I was a teenager at that time, and I used to march the protests, you know, and we were against Islamic terrorism and for freedom with feminists. And I remember we used to say a slogan that literally says, "We are still revolutionaries." And
Yeah.
it goes like that in Algeria. ما زلنا ما زلنا ما زلنا ثوار. This was our slogan, so this is my
Beautiful.
gift for you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. That makes
Thank
my
you so
heart
much.
so happy. That's it. We have to keep
Thank
fighting,
you.
girls.
Thanks a
And
lot,
boys.
Yasmin. Merci beaucoup.
My pleasure.
Merci.
My pleasure. De
So,
rien.